A very good morning, everybody. It's time to kickstart your Sunday morning with an hour-long robust discussion of some of the biggest news in the media this week, carefully monitored by our producers and brought to you with a smile and lots of energy by myself, Alicia Jali, here on the SABC News channel. You're now watching Media Monitor, and here's what we'll be exploring today. Finance Minister Malusi Gigaba waived residential requirements to grant citizenship to the Gupta family. Could a motion of no confidence against former DA leader and Western Cape Premier Helen Zille be tabled? Deputy Finance Minister Sfiso Buthelezi has been accused of turning a blind eye to wasteful expenditure amounting to 1 billion rand at Prasa. And finally, we look at the political climate out in Lesotho post the elections and the assassination of Tom Thabane's estranged wife just days before his inauguration. Now, we'll get to discuss those in a short while, but I have to give you a quick update of the current news trends at this hour. The ANC succession debate has intensified as more party structures pronounce their preferred leadership candidates. The ruling party's elective conference takes place in the next 6 months. Gauteng, the ANC has stopped short of formally endorsing the president, Cyril Ramaphosa, as the president of the party. It is tradition that the deputy president succeeds the president. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, Matthews Prasa and Lindiwe Sisulu have also been nominated by some branches. The Department of Home Affairs says their version of tomorrow's planned strike by its staff over Saturday shifts will give it more time to negotiate with the unions. An agreement to call off the strike was reached on Thursday night after the department agreed to reverse its circular ordering staff to work on Saturdays. The unions earlier accused the department of taking decisions without proper consultation with its employees. And the Springboks have clinched the Test series against France with another comprehensive win. Man of the match, Siya Kolisi, led the charge as the Boks swept to a 37-15 victory over a French team that was considerably stronger than the lineup they fielded in the first test. Now the series win gives another boost to the Boks after last year's miserable campaign. Well done to the Boks. All right, on the show today, we're very pleased to welcome SABC digital producer, Mr. Dini Noshanga. Dini, a very good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure.
All right, thank you so much for joining us. We do have on the main desk political analyst Nompumelelo Runje and media analyst Eboho Ditseho. Ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to both of you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Morning, and thank you for having us.
All right, Mr. Mekoto, let's go ahead with the biggest hashtag of this week. What was it? What was the biggest hashtag? Go ahead.
The biggest this week was a story that broke out on Friday, hashtag Youth Day, commemorating 41 years of the Soweto uprising. People were just sharing positive messages on Youth Day in memory of those that died a while back. You know, one of the tweets that came up was from Saftu in the Northwest. I don't know if we have it up. Northwest is the richest province, but the youth from that province are unemployed. Saftu is saying, let us regulate the mines. And then this one from Samuel Jacob says, we don't have to take to the streets to be like the youths of 76. We've got to simply stand for what we believe in together. So unity coming very strongly here. Another one from Sizo of Bulawayo.
Says, thank you, 1976 youth, but in real life you disrespect their classmates, your parents. Very interesting. Very interesting. And Nompumelelo, what did you make of the social media side of how June 16 was commemorated, particularly this year?
It looked to be quite positive, obviously always remembering the 1976 youth and what they stood for, and but obviously there's a contrast between that youth and the youth today and the experiences of the youth today. And it seems that the same struggles that the youth of 76 were facing are still the challenges that young people today are facing. So we see a lot of that, sort of contrasting of the two generations.
Well, I think it was a very robust June 16. We saw a difference in previous celebrations where a lot of young people would go out and do very irresponsible things. With the advent of social media, we saw a lot of discussion taking place in terms of where our country is. And I think that we should look at what the generation of June 16 did. They took the struggle by the horn, and they said that we want political freedom, be free from segregation, but now we need to now define our new struggle, which is obviously to transform the economy of this country.
And those are some of the challenges in particular that youth should be talking about.
What Tebuko is saying, I did an interview with a couple of students, first-year students in a tertiary. One of the problems that they seem to be picking up is the inequality in the education system.
Absolutely, yeah, that's always one of the biggest issues. Let's look at the next big hashtag.
On Thursday,
why am I seeing taxis here?
Hashtag taxi strike full of quantums from Toyota. That was the issue. Onotex are just complaining about the high price they have to pay for these vehicles.
Really?
And it also involves the interest that they pay. Interestingly enough, we are told that these guys pay about an installment of about 14,000, 15,000 rands over 72 months. If you put that together, that comes to over 1.08 million. It's a lot of money. This is what people had to say, though, concerned about their bosses at work, right? My boss uses a bike to work, so he mustn't dare ask me why I'm late. Hashtag taxi strike.
Let's look at more tweets coming in for the taxi strike there. Only stupid managers will fire their employees because of today's hashtag taxi strike. That is from D. King. Let's have a look at more tweets if we do have. Dino, what are people saying?
From Riabitswe. I see most commuters are worried more about their bosses and making it to the office on time, I guess. What about your own safety, people? Hashtag taxi strike.
Debo, what did you make of this?
Well, I think we should be very proud of the taxi industry specifically because it's one of the few that is owned by black people in this country. However, we need to look at the funding model of the taxi industry. We need more innovation. We need to see how is it that we could pool our resources together, to ensure that the taxi drivers themselves, not just the owners, have a stake, in the money that is being made. And we saw a big tour of ideas yesterday where Sizwe Dlomo and Vusi Tembegwa were fighting over who came up with the idea that they must pool resources together, which is great. I think it's very important for us to come up with new strategies, in order to have an economic model, that will be beneficial to the taxi industry.
I hear you, Tebogo, but I mean, it's always the taxi people that are always opposed to any form of regulation by government of the taxi industry. So then how do we go forward giving them solutions for them?
Well, I think it's important that this debate continues because this is a privately owned sector providing a public service.
Absolutely.
So that has huge implications for commuters, and we could see the reason why the strike was so impactful is the fact that that's the point that the taxi industry is trying to make, is that we make this economy run. We carry the working class of the society. So it is about time that we start speaking not only about regulation of the taxi industry, which is very important, but we need to speak about how does government begin to get involved in terms of the funding models, because this is a public service. But again, if they want to be funded by the state, then they must be willing to subject themselves to regulation by the state as well.
That's another question.
That's a catch-22. So it has to continue until we get to a point where we can actually find a solution, a workable solution to continue the empowerment of black people, given that, like what Tebogo said, this is a black-owned industry, but at the same time to ensure a safe and efficient public transport for the working class in the society.
I'll look at it from your view. Yeah. It's fine. Let's wrap it up.
Just on what Tebogo touched on. Hashtag Vusi, hashtag Sizwe. This tiff of theirs on social media. But someone said this was a battle of ideas.
What is
between
this
the
about?
Two guys, right? Because Sizwe tweeted something about the stats regarding the taxi strike. And then Vusi, after Sizwe had done that, went on Facebook. But someone said these guys are talking about the battle of ideas, but there's nothing new in what these guys are saying. Someone has said it before, so Sizwe can't lay claim to this as much as Vusi gave incorrect stats on the number of taxis that have been sold. Before I forget, there's a milestone that SABC Digital News reached.
Can we talk about that?
This month, we reached over 100 million views on our YouTube channel, SABC Digital News on YouTube. So if you want to find out more about these stories and see this program after we have done it, for the recorded version of it, you can go to SABC Digital News on YouTube.
All right. Give us that URL once again, Dini.
And then the URL for our online news, sabc.co.za/news.
All right. Well, that's where we leave it with the digital segment. Thank you so much, Dini, for joining us and bringing us some energetic feeds this morning. When we return, we talk Gigaba granting the Gupta family South African citizenship when he was still Minister of Home Affairs. It's coming up after this break.
Do you support the calls made by Bladen Zimande and Soli Mapaila?
It is not a call by Comrade Soli Mapaila and the Comrade Bladen Zimande. It is the position of the party.
Yes.
And the position of the party, we support it unambiguously.
Why?
The theory of the revolution, in simple terms, was that revolutionary forces are going to take charge of the state. And having taken charge of the state, they are going to transform the state to eventually transform society.
Join me, Mpotsedu, live every Monday to Thursday at 17:30.
Well, a very good morning and welcome to AM News live at 10:00 hours across all Central Africa regions.
A fitting send-off for a revolutionary giant. A life dedicated in service of the people.
The result means that the Swallows are out of the ABC Multiple League and drop to the amateur fourth tier of South African football, the SAB League.
Tune in on AM News every Saturday and Sunday from 10 hours.
Your main news this week, Finance Minister Malusi Gigaba's name continues to come up in the so-called Gupta leaks emails. The emails reveal the role Gigaba allegedly played in helping the family, including placing officials in strategic positions in government departments and SOEs in order to push the Gupta business interests. Earlier this week, EFF leader Julius Malema revealed in a letter in which the Home Affairs Department had turned down the Gupta's application for citizenship by naturalization, citing their failure to comply with certain legal requirements, only for Gigaba, who was Home Affairs Minister then, overturning the department's decision and waiving the residential requirements in the process and granting the family early naturalization. Gigaba has admitted that the documents Malema posted on social media to the Gupta family's naturalization application are indeed genuine. He has since blamed the media on being too quick to publish unverified allegations. Well, let's find out more on this clip.
It was a technical appeal. It's not that you granted citizenship to somebody who had not qualified. The issue was, no, you can submit your application later. But there was a fact that the husband already had naturalization and therefore the wife, you needed to regularize that. So they look at all the facts, and I'm sure the DG of Home Affairs can explain this to you. And having done all of that, they then say, Minister, we recommend that we actually overturn my decision, because it comes to you when the DG has signed, basically saying overturn my decision because new facts have come to light.
Wait, I'm very confused. What's really going on here? Who got the naturalization first? Was it the wife or the husband? Or aren't they? So how does it work? Aren't they supposed to get it as a unit? Nompumelelo, maybe shed some light there.
Well, I'm no legal expert, but there are a number of legal questions that arise from this thing. Firstly, obviously the process. Was the process followed? Was the process lawful? That's the first legal question. The other legal question is, did the Guptas actually meet the requirements according to the South African Citizenship Act, right? Which among other things prescribes that there must be a minimum of five years permanent residency in the country. The people must be of good character, and we already know about the Gupta family and their shenanigans. Obviously, from 2013, they violated the Key Points Act, basically the National Key Points Act, by landing at Waterkloof. So obviously, the good character thing is a bit questionable there as well. And then, of course, they must have denounced or renounce their Indian citizenship, because India does not allow dual citizenship. Yes. So it's still unclear whether that was done or not. Then on the ethical questions is, could we really believe that Minister Malusi Gigaba had no conflict of interest when he made that decision? These are the Guptas. We know that the Guptas are the friends of his boss, President Jacob Zuma. Could he have not decided to make this decision so as not to displease his own boss? So should he have recused himself from making that decision, given the issues around the Gupta family, right? So obviously in politics, generally perceptions are more important even than the reality. So even if we clear up the legal questions, those ethical questions of this conflict of interest, we also know, I mean, given the Gupta emails, that he himself, Malusi Gigaba himself, has been associated with the family. So how then do we as a public trust that the minister is able to make an objective decision on the basis of the regulations? And also, in addition to this point that he makes about an appeal, according to the Act, as far as I understand it, one cannot appeal a decline. You know, if your application for nationalization and citizenship was declined, you can't appeal it.
Reapply,
you can only reapply after 1 year. So this notion, because according to the documents we've seen, it was declined on the 22nd of January 2015. Then 5 months later, then the minister approves. So there are so many questions here. But obviously, on the legal points, only a court of law can determine the points of legality. But the rest is up to us in terms of the ethical and political questions for us as the public and voters to answer and to decide for ourselves.
What do you think, Debo? I think the public protector has now got her hands full now with these Gupta leaks.
Well, look, Nompumelelo is making very good points because she's dealing with technical, political issues and
as well as legal.
And perceptive issues. Technically, we still have to see whether or not they complied with the regulations. But if you look at it politically, the election 2019 is just around the corner. It's 2 months and 2 years away from now. And we need to now think, how is the ANC going to be perceived going into the next election? Because last year, it was quite a disaster. And so I think politically, the ANC needs to sit back and say, guys, this is the situation, these are the perceptions, and this is how we're going to deal with it. Because I'm telling you right now, the public at large are definitely not impressed at what is happening in this country. They want to see change, and we cannot have a situation where people are able to buy citizenship based on how much they've invested in the country. When we look at the African continent, brothers and sisters are struggling to get work permits in South Africa, which is not necessarily even a country that cannot take in people from other African countries. And so because they are poor, they will not be able to get work permits. But if you are rich, you are able to get naturalization. And so that kind of conflict shows us that when you start to focus on serving specific individuals, you then miss out on the constituencies that you are supposed to be serving, which is why our people are left back so far. And so we need to now, as young people, I know young people are very disappointed at what is happening. And we need to now say, this is not acceptable. As young people, we are saying we want people to serve the people on the ground, look at us as a continent, start to integrate the continent, and do not serve individuals. That is the main issue that we are dealing with. We're 23 years into democracy. We're still called South Africa. You still have Pretoria, Johannesburg. 79% of the land in this country is still owned by the private sector. we don't own anything. You know, and it is because we go into politics and start to serve individuals. We don't go into politics in order to serve the people. And that's why we're in our current mess.
Speaking of serving individuals and not the people, I mean, the public protector has been labeled, I mean, a Zuma puppet. Do you think, I mean, she's got a lot of pressure now with these probes. Do you think she'll do a thorough job, though, when it comes to this?
Well, I mean, we've had this discussion before about this public protector, and it's become all the more clear that she seems to lean more to supporting the current government as opposed to actually, but obviously we need to give her a chance. We need to give her a chance and see how she will respond to the current allegations that have come up. She has committed herself to investigate.
Yeah, but people are saying it doesn't, it's not broad enough. It's just certain aspects that she's agreed to investigate and implement.
Well, I think that it doesn't just rest with the public protector at this stage. I mean, this is an opportunity for the law enforcement agencies to redeem themselves. Because there are cases, and I think I read a report last week where the NPA is finding that there are some cases that they can prosecute on the basis of these email leaks. The Hawks also have things to investigate on the basis of the allegations out of these Gupta leaks. So all these law enforcement agencies that have been seen to be undermined by the politics of state capture have an opportunity to redeem themselves, including the public protector. But we cannot obviously preempt what she will do, even though we have the perception that she's pro the current government, or she's pro Zuma, whatever it is. But we must give her the opportunity to see whether or not she will follow the prescripts of what she's supposed to do, as opposed to her politics as we've seen them.
What do you think, Tabo?
Well, I think I agree with my colleague. It is very important, you know, when you go into a job to fulfill your purpose in that job. And it goes back to your purpose when you are entering any field, in any career that you are entering. That what is your purpose? What do you want to achieve when you get into office? Is it to serve individuals, or is it to serve the people? If you are serving the people, you are going to see the results. If you are not, we will also see a lack of results. And so, the jury is still out. We still need to see, over the cases that are going to be dealt with, whether or not the public protector is going to deal with them.
Well, just still on the leaked emails, we know that Dr. Ben Gubane also resigned from from the board this week. What do you make of his resignation, even though political parties are paying for his blood, saying that, you know what, whether you resign or not, we are still going to get you?
Look, it doesn't look good for Ben Gubane, let's be honest. I mean, he claims that it has nothing to do with the leak, with the Gupta emails and the whole saga around Eskom and the relationship between the Guptas and Eskom and their power at Eskom. But obviously, again, perceptions matter. He resigned at a time, I mean, his contract was just about to end, but he resigns at this time where this issue and this saga is growing, right? So how are we not to make the assumption, or the conclusion, jump to the conclusion that it must be linked to this thing? But I think it's very important that we've come to this point. The Gupta leaks, these emails, have confirmed what the previous public protector has found. When that public protector report came out, one of the criticisms about it was that it's not conclusive enough. And in fact, that's why she called for a commission of inquiry, right? But then subsequent to that, we've seen the South African Council of Churches and burdening panel come with a report. We've seen academics come with a report, also confirming these. So now the Gupta leaks turn what has been dismissed as this fanciful, imaginative notion of state capture into a very realistic and very serious thing that needs to be dealt with. So Ben Gubane can't sweep it under the ground and dismiss it. Obviously, it's a bit strange that he should resign at this time.
All right. Well, that's where we leave it on that topic. Coming up after the break, this past week saw Zille unreservedly apologizing to the South African public over her colonial tweets, but questions remain if the motion of no confidence will be tabled against Zille. Find out in the break.
about what happens when we put our differences aside and we come together as a human race.
Salt makes its way out of the kitchen into the art studio.
Normally, you know, salt is for food and stuff, but then here's salt.
The past couple of months, I've grown so much, and I'm just ready to impart what I've learned to the next Miss South Africa.
I wasn't expecting this. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
I'm feeling so overwhelmed.
For your weekly dose of entertainment news, tune into Trends every Saturday from 12 to 1.
And we're back with more Media Monitor. DA Western Cape Legislature Chief Whip Mark Wiley says a motion of no confidence against Western Cape Premier Helen Zille is unnecessary. Well, this after the opposition parties indicated that they would be moving a motion of no confidence against her, following, of course, her posting of tweets in which she said that not all aspects of colonialism were bad. She has since apologized and has been removed from all DA's decision-making structures following a disciplinary hearing in which she was found very guilty. She, however, remains the premier of the province. Let's take a look at this clip.
After a period of debate and reflection, I recognize the offence caused by my tweet on the 16th of March 2017 with regard to the legacy of colonialism. I therefore apologize unreservedly to the South African public who were offended by this tweet and my subsequent explanation of it. In South Africa, colonialism and apartheid subjugated and oppressed a majority and benefited a minority on the basis of race. This is indeed indefensible, and I do not support, justify, praise, or promote it in any way.
Let's talk about the aftermath that this whole decision from the suspension, not suspension, and suspended from all party structures and this and this. Like, I mean, to this conclusion now where we are, where she remains Premier of the Western Cape, and then what else?
It's a circus. Now, there's a perception that Mmusi Maimane is a spokesperson of the DA, not the leader of the DA. There's a perception that Helen Zille is more of a leader in the DA than Mmusi Maimane. And he's trying to break away from that perception, which is why he broke ranks with Helen Zille on this particular issue. Now, Helen Zille has made a lot of these kind of comments. She said that students moving from the Eastern Cape, when they move to the Western Cape, that they are aliens. Now, she believes deep in her heart of hearts that she owns this country. And the other people, which is black people, are foreigners in their own country. And she might even be backed up by the statistics that show that white people are owning the economy, they own us socially and psychologically. And it is because we haven't dealt with important issues like the land issue.
Absolutely.
We're not like China. In China, in 1950 to 1952, they redistributed 100 million hectares of land back to the Chinese, to 75 million Chinese people. We're not like Namibia, which got independence in 1990, and they've since distributed 27 million hectares of land. Actually, 27% of the land in Namibia has been redistributed back to the black people. And they aim within 3 years to have redistributed 43% of arable agricultural land. In South Africa, the state owns 14% of the land, while private sector owns 79%. And so the people like Helen Zille are emboldened by the current status quo in the country, the economic, psychological, and social status quo. That is why she's emboldened to say that there was something nice and something good came out of the dispossession and the murdering of black people. And so we need to sort out the problems, otherwise we'll be dealing with the symptoms of racism, and we're not going to get to the crux of the matter.
You know, Peter Groenewald stood up in Parliament this week and outrightly said that there will be a civil war should, land be given back to the black South Africans, and the people that own it are not compensated. And in such statements, and referring to what Tebogo has just said now, are we ever going to get to the bottom of this? Because apparently it seems the core of this issue goes back to the issue of land.
Well, I mean, the question is not that are we ever going to get to the bottom. We have to get to the bottom
how
of
we're
it.
going to get
The problem is if we don't solve the economic question and the land question in this country, the stability of our nation.
But isn't that what radical economic transformation is supposed to do?
Well, it is supposed to do that.
So why are people not receptive to it?
It is supposed to do
I'm
that.
sorry.
Yeah. it is supposed to do that. But of course, like you say, why are people not receptive? Because there are interests here. And I think Tebogo articulated those interests very well. There are interests. People have, there's someone who's going to lose, and there's somebody who's going to gain, right? So when people's interests are involved, and particularly in terms of the economy and economics and money, obviously there's going to be resistance. But I just want to make a comment on the political implications of what just happened in the DA. What we've seen in the DA is that there's been two centers of power. When Helen Zille stepped down as leader of the party, should she not have stepped down completely from politics and political involvement in the DA to give Mmusi Maimane the space to fulfill his own vision as a leader of the party? How do you lead with the shadow of your former boss or your former leader in the background? Zille didn't go through that. Tony Leon left and gave her the space to run.
How do you lead when you can't make decisions?
To run the party, exactly. So what this has confirmed, as Tebogo has also articulated, is that Mmusi Maimane is not necessarily the leader of the DA. In fact, it also confirms the allegations. I mean, what Malema has said, that he's just a caretaker, a caretaker leader of the party. But beyond that, again, 2019, we have to discuss what does this mean for the DA in elections. One of the things that the DA had to have proved between now and 2019 is its commitment to the transformation agenda in this country. If it's going to win the support of the majority of black people in this country, it has to show some form of commitment to the transformation agenda. And the implications of this decision, when you have a new young black leader pitted against the former leader of the party, and he's seen to have to capitulate to this leader, who not only is the former leader, but has articulated racist thoughts and racist sort of views. That creates the perception that the DA is stuck in the past. And all the allegations and all the accusations that parties like the ANC and the EFF have made against this party are plausible. Right? So it's going to take a lot for the DA to come out of this and prove to the electorate that it is not what it has been accused to be, which is a racist, white-dominated party.
But I mean, speaking of Malema, I mean, the EFF was making big noise about withdrawing their support should she not be expelled from her premier's office. And that, of course, has not happened, and they continue their coalition with the DA. So what do you think about that, Debo? White noise?
Well,
from the EFF?
I think supporters of the EFF would have expected more. You cannot be in a situation where you are forced to be in a coalition with one particular party because you have no other options. At times, you might want to abstain and say, you know what, good luck. We are not going to accept this. It's here and we're not going to accept it.
So you're saying they should have taken a serious stance on this matter and stuck to their guns?
I believe they should have taken a serious stance. However, they have explained that the reason that they are stuck in this coalition of which I don't think they call it a coalition.
Yes, that's right.
They are stuck in this partnership, whatever it is, is because they don't have any options, and this is a tactic for them to dislodge the ANC. But I just wanted to add another thing to the Helen Zille debate. It is because if you look at even our education system, it is colonized. And so we are producing apologetic Africans, we are producing unapologetic non-Africans who continue with the racism because their success is predicated on dominating the majority of the population.
Well said.
Just very quickly on the note of the EFF, obviously I thank you for correcting the fact that they're not in a coalition with the DA, and they vote with the DA on specific policy issues at municipal level. Now it waits to be seen how that support will be translated moving forward. Will they be supporting the DA on specific votes in terms of services and policy? So I think there's still a lot that we can expect, a lot of maneuvering, political maneuvering that we could expect from the EFF moving forward.
All right, and we're also yet to see if that motion of no confidence will actually be called. Well, after the break, the Deputy Finance Minister has been accused of turning a blind eye to wasteful expenditure amounting to a whopping 1 billion rand at Prasa. That's all coming up after this break. Deputy Finance Minister Sfiso Buthelezi has been accused of turning a blind eye to wasteful expenditure as well as financial irregularities amounting to more than 1 billion rand during his 6-year term as chairman of the Passenger Rail Agency of South Africa, or Prasa. Now, Prasa's alleged corruption investigation is expected to continue despite the 148 million rand that may have to be disclosed as unauthorized expenditure. The Directorate for Priority Crime Investigation, the Hawks, was last year asked by the state-owned company to probe 142 cases in relation to irregular as well as wasteful expenditure. But then how come we didn't hear about any of those cases, Nompumele?
It's very interesting. You wonder, did the media not get wind of it? Were these investigations conducted in secret? In secret mode, it is quite, because I mean, these are huge amounts of money we're talking about. It's 142 cases. And also, why did Sfiso Buthelezi not say anything, right? And sort of blow the whistle or come out publicly and say, I've noticed that this is what's going on at Prasa. So it does create, again, a perception that was he trying to hide something? Was he trying to conceal something? Did he know something, for instance? So there are lots of issues that still require now clarity from this story.
Yeah, I think this goes back to the issue of our public transport system.
Yeah.
The reason that we were seeing a lot of traffic in the mornings, and it takes time for you to get to work, is because we haven't really developed our public transport system.
Yeah.
In that during the previous economy, there were large sections of the population which had excluded, and that excluded in every way, including through the transport system. And so that's why we created our taxi industry, which started off as underhanded, underground, and now has been put into the mainstream. So when you see all this wasteful expenditure happening, it now speaks to the state of our public transport system. It was great for us to have the BRT in Gauteng, the Gautrain and BRT, but that is also only serving the communities that have advantageous, live in advantageous conditions. It does not serve the communities in the townships. It doesn't serve any other province. And so we need to now have a more inclusive way. But we cannot have that if you are in a parastatal that is not spending the money correctly. You go onto a metro rail, it's terrible, dilapidated. You see some of the women, they'll be wearing jewelry. Someone will just take your jewelry and jump off the plane. Jump off the bus. And so it is important for us to upgrade the metro rail by trains that actually fit on those tracks. It was such an embarrassment that we spent a lot of money on trains that don't even fit on the track.
What happened to that contract? I mean, this is what I wanted to ask next. I mean, since the scandals of the Lucky Montana days, do you think the current board has done anything to expose the actual rot that is at Prasa then, at Nompumelelo?
I think the board has also been embattled Popo Malefe they've been in court. In fact, they challenged the minister firing the board. And in fact, he argues that they were fired because they were undertaking these investigations, trying to dig out the rot, at Prasa. So I think, just to touch on something that Debocha said, as these things come out in the media, these scandals and these lost billions to wasteful expenditure and maladministration, we tend to forget the implication that actually has for development on the ground, right? Even when we look at this notion of state capture, these things have direct implications for the capacity of the state to deliver on its developmental agenda. Because particularly the SOEs were supposed to be used, and the expenditure of the SOEs is supposed to be used to push and fast track the transformation of society and the transformation of the economy through the huge expenditure spending budget the procurement budget that government has, and deploying that in strategic ways such that it begins to fuel and fast track the transformation of our society. But we see that when these kinds of things happen, it is the poor that are supposed to be benefiting from them that actually suffer the most. And it's important that we begin to make the link. It's not just high-level scandals. It actually impacts service delivery. It actually impacts the spatial development of our country. It impacts, like Debocha has said, the public transport system in this country. It impacts the growth of the economy because there are businesses, small businesses, black-owned businesses that are hamstrung by the kinds of decisions that are made that are either fueled by ineptitude or incompetence or even blatant corruption. So it's really disheartening what we see happening.
Tabo, let's hear from you quickly.
And I think also what needs to be discussed is how state procurement takes place. I mean, the report that SAA only grants 2% of the procurement to black people is astonishing. Because the only thing that black people have in this country is their identity, their culture, and political power. We don't have any other power. And we cannot afford, to be in a position where we're going to just relinquish political power, because that's all we have. And the ANC is one of the parties that is known to be serving black people. And there are other parties that also serve black people. Now, we need to use that political power wisely. You cannot be in government and out of 600 billion rands that is spent on procurement, 35 billion goes to black people. We don't even know what you asked that black person to give you the contract. But the main issue is the rest is going to white-owned businesses. Then what is the point of having political power?
Wow. I just wanted to add on to that. I mean, we have an Auditor General, we've got Scopa. So why are people then not being held to account for those wasteful expenditures?
Now, this issue of the Auditor General, if you look at the Auditor General's reports of the last couple of years, he has flagged the issues, of poor financial management, of poor,
and given recommendations.
Yes, and he's given recommendations. Poor compliance with regulation. But the thing is, unlike the public protector, all other Chapter 9 institutions do not have powers of remedial action.
That's
right?
true. That's
so
true.
the Auditor General can only recommend, right, and can only encourage the government to act on these issues. And we've seen, if you look at the Auditor General's reports, those municipalities have actually taken his advice into consideration, to actually improve.
They did better.
Right? They did better. But the majority hasn't. But that takes political will. It's about political will. And is there political will in our government, in our municipalities, in the provinces for these things to be done? And clearly, there isn't.
Well, that's very, very interesting to hear. After the break, Lesotho Prime Minister Tom Thabane was inaugurated this past Friday, the second time in just over 2 years. More Media Monitor when we return. Well, a very good morning and welcome to AM News live at 10:00 hours across all Central African regions.
A fitting send-off for a revolutionary giant, a life dedicated in service of the people.
The result means that Swallows are out of the ABC Municipal League and drop to the amateur fourth tier of South African football, the SAB League.
Tune in on AM News every Saturday and Sunday from 10 hours.
Africa is getting more and more digitized, and people have to navigate through an increasingly connected world.
I did a call my bay over here.
At school, I use my Wi-Fi.
On Network, we tell you about Africa's technology and social media landscape.
Politicians already do use Twitter.
It's both Android and iOS compatible.
A solar charged box that includes everything, the computer, the projector.
That's Network with Ms. Phumelele Zondi every Sunday at 9 p.m.
Welcome back. Newly elected Prime Minister of Lesotho, Tom Thabane, was inaugurated in the capital, Maseru, this past Friday. The second time in just over 2 years, Thabane took over from Pakadita Mosisili, who had replaced him in 2015, and SADC leaders congratulated Lesotho on a peaceful handover of power, and his swearing in took place 2 days after the fatal shooting of his estranged wife, Dipulelo Thabane. Now, it's understood that the estranged wife of Thabane was one of 2 women shot in what seems like a random shooting. Well, for this segment, we are joined on the line by SABC reporter out in Lesotho in Maseru, Ntakwana Ngatane, to shed some more light on this story. Ntakwana, a very good morning to you. Do tell us, what is the mood like in Lesotho post the assassination of Thabane's wife and, of course, his inauguration? Let's not forget that.
Good morning, Alicia. Well, as you can imagine, it is mixed reactions because Thabane himself, the inauguration ceremony started with a moment of silence, and he started his address at the inauguration with indicating that his family is in mourning. But of course, he had to go through with the inauguration because, as you can imagine, there was speculation around why it is that this shooting may have happened. Some saying that perhaps some elements would have wanted Thabane himself and his family to want to postpone the inauguration so that some other things can happen in the interim. But of course, the ABC, after Cyril Ramaphosa, Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa, SADC facilitator, reiterated SADC support and that he would be traveling to Lesotho despite the fact that the killing had happened. The inauguration didn't go ahead.
All right.
Yes, very, very mixed reactions of mourning, of both mourning in Lesotho and celebration.
I see. Now, Ntakwane, let's talk about the handover of power. We see this is another coalition government in Lesotho. How does the future look like, particularly given what has happened in that country in the past? Will stability be restored? Have the Basotho accepted this decision and are ready to embrace the leadership of Tom Thabane?
I think one has to look at two things, Alicia. The first one that one has to look at is that Tom Thabane was at the helm of the very first coalition in Lesotho that was in power from 2012 to 2015. And during that period, although he fell out with his partner, the Lesotho Congress for Democracy, that eventually went into another coalition with the Democratic Congress from 2015 to now 2017, his supporters, members of his party, key members of his party, that includes Dr. Moeketsi Majoro, who was Minister of Planning. At the time, he was appointed as a technocrat, but this time he has won a constituency, and he says they have learned from those lessons and they are willing to make this a successful coalition after the two that failed dismally, the one from 2015 and the one from 2015 to 2017. But of course, that does not mean that they're coming in without challenges, because they have different interests, with Monyane Moleleti billed to be Deputy Prime Minister, and the coalition itself of four parties expected to allocate cabinet posts especially. That can be a challenge, but of course we understand that they are at a very advanced stage. This coming week we expect them to announce ministers, and then we will know how they will deal with those particular challenges that were the cause of demise of the previous coalition. Alicia? All
right, a very quick one before I let you go, Ntakwane. I know it might be early days, but of course we spoke about this going into the elections. The discussion of the amendment of the Lesotho Constitution, in particular, when it comes to the powers that the king or the prime minister and the army and everybody has. When is that going to start?
Well, this is a big priority, both for the incoming government and for international organizations, especially SADC, the facilitator. African Union, as a mission, has also stressed that Lesotho needs to go through those constitutional, judicial, public sector and security reforms. But of course, Tom Thabane is stressing that particularly the security sector needs to understand that it is answerable to the parliament and the elected governing authority in Lesotho. So some of these things are very, very key. But all the stakeholders, you remember, signed a pledge to prioritize the reforms, to hold a multi-stakeholder dialogue post-election to be facilitated by SADC facilitator, Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa. So we expect that to be one of the very first things. He did say that in his statement, Tom Thabane, when he took over, that those reforms have to happen as quickly as possible.
Thank you so much. And Ntakwane Ngadane on the line to us all the way from Lesotho in Maseru. What do you think? Can we expect a new reform Lesotho from these elections?
Oh, we can only hope for the best. I mean, SADC and the AU have really been trying to work hard to work with the Lesotho government to come with stability. But obviously, with the renegotiation perhaps of the constitution and delineating the various powers in a way that there's more of predictability and clarity in terms of how these things work. Perhaps we can expect a better future, but we can only hope for the best. We don't know.
It's so confusing, that constitution. What do you think, Debo?
Yeah, well, I think South Africans need to know that this affects us deeply. Just like whatever happens anywhere in the continent affects us deeply.
So they must take it seriously.
They must take it very seriously. Lesotho provides us with a lot of water. If it's not for Lesotho, we would have a serious water shortage in this country.
So we need to encourage peaceful solutions in
absolutely.
Lesotho. All right, well, that's how we end today's show. Thank you so much for joining us. Nompumelelo Runjan, Tebogo Detsejo, joining me in studio to unpack some of the biggest news of this week. We are back next week with a fresh round of the biggest stories for that week. And I'm back on top of the hour just now with AM News. Stay tuned.
Africa is getting more and more digitized, and people have to navigate through an increasingly connected world.
A beautiful my bay over here.
At school, I use my Wi-Fi.
On Network, we tell you about Africa's technology and social media landscape.
Politicians already do use Twitter a lot.
It's both Android and iOS compatible.
A solar charged box that includes everything, the computer, the projector.
That's Network with Ms. Phumelele Zondi every Sunday at 9 p.m.
We're shooting a campaign. We're telling genuine stories from real people that have been affected by the SABC. It's also interesting to get the backstory in terms of their dreams to be on screen and eventually getting the pleasure to do that. And understanding that they're communicating on a platform that speaks to millions of people. And it speaks to how the SABC can fulfill its mandate.
The SABC represents the opportunity for so many young South Africans, for old South Africans, to be able to look at the world that they may not experience any other way.
People should continue to pay their TV license because it allows the SABC to bring quality programming.
The TV license is really part of the lifeblood of the channel and the corporation.
When you're listening to your favorite jams, you're listening to your favorite radio DJ, you must know that you made it possible by paying your TV license.
It's such a holistic process that goes into TV licenses. It's not only one part where we say South Africans have to pay for TV licenses. You pay a TV license because you get so much value out of it, and that's the content that you get every single day on the SABC platforms.
I have been in the film industry now for 51 years. I am quite satisfied with the evolution of television now, that you have got a lot of actors and you have got a lot of crew members. We should also play part of paying our licenses, because I think it's proper.
R1.4 billion was raised to build the institution. Additional funding came from ordinary South Africans.
It's been heartwarming to have seen the project from 2009 when the first sorting happened to see it today being completed. Indeed, this is going to be our benchmark going forward. It's just been incredible.
Jammeh has said in the past that only Allah can remove him from office, and once claimed he would rule the tiny riverside West African nation for 1 billion years.
We are going to win this election.
Even if we avoid a downgrade, we're still hovering very dangerously close to junk, and that'll of course affect markets next year.
Our markets are actually already punishing us for a downgrade that may or may not come.
Woods made a blistering start but eventually slumped to a 1 over par 73 and is 9 shots behind the leader and his compatriot JB Holmes.
You know, I just made some really, if you look at it, some really silly mistakes. Mistakes I don't normally make, but I hadn't played in a while, and unfortunately I made those mistakes. I can clean that up.